Hey everyone, welcome back to that 90s pod.
Glad to be here.
Are you ready for another deep dive into the decade that gave us, well, everything 90s?
I think our listeners know what the 90s are about.
That's true. So today we're going to be talking about a 90s icon, someone whose career really took off in that decade.
Drew Barrymore.
Yeah, Drew Barrymore. And, her story is about way more than just like a list of movies.
Oh, absolutely.
It's about like cultural shifts,
Yeah.
like what it meant to be famous in that time.
Right, and how that was changing.
And how she managed to like come out on top in an industry that can be pretty tough.
Resilient, yeah.
Exactly. So before we get into all that, I just want to remind everyone, if you're enjoying this deep dive and you want to hear more awesome 90s content,
Hit that subscribe button.
yes, and tell your friends about that 90s pod. We love having you all along for the ride. Okay, so Drew Barrymore. I mean, we got to start with E.T., right?
Oh, for sure.
I mean, can you imagine being 7 years old and starring in one of the biggest movies of all time?
It's unheard of.
Right. Like that kind of launch pad is insane.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just about the box office numbers. I mean, why do you think E.T. was such a phenomenon? Like, why did it resonate so deeply with audiences back in the early 80s?
I think it offered an escape.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, the world was a pretty tense place back then. The Cold War anxieties, economic uncertainty, and E.T. gave people this pure, innocent escape. And I think that's why it connected with so many people.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like people were craving something hopeful.
Exactly. Something to believe in.
And E.T. delivered that in spades.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because while E.T. launched her career, it also kind of exposed her to the darker side of Hollywood.
Right.
Especially for child stars.
Yeah.
Her struggles were very public, and it makes you think about the price of fame, especially at such a young age.
It's a lot for anyone to handle, let alone a child.
Totally. And that's where the 90s get really interesting in Drew's story.
How so?
Well, because the 90s were all about authenticity, right?
Definitely. People were tired of the fake, perfect images.
Exactly. They wanted real people, flaws and all. And Drew's willingness to be open about her struggles with addiction and the pressure of fame.
It made her more relatable.
Right. It's like her vulnerability became her strength.
Absolutely. It showed that she was human, just like everyone else.
And people connected with that big time. Okay, so before we dive into her amazing 90s films, I just want to remind you all again, if you're loving this Drew Barrymore deep dive, make sure you hit that subscribe button.
And tell a friend.
Yes. Spread the 90s love. Okay, now back to Drew. Two of her films that really scream 90s to me are Never Been Kissed and The Wedding Singer.
Classics.
Total classics. What do you think it is about those roles that resonated so much with audiences?
Well, they both capture that 90s rom-com vibe perfectly, but with a depth that goes beyond just the surface charm.
Okay, I like that.
Like in Never Been Kissed, she plays Josie Geller, this journalist who goes undercover as a high school student.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And it's awkward and relatable and funny, and it taps into those universal feelings of insecurity and self-acceptance that we all experience, especially during those teenage years.
So true.
And then you have The Wedding Singer, where she's paired with Adam Sandler, which is just pure 90s magic.
Oh, yeah.
But beyond the laughs and the amazing soundtrack, both of those films showcase her ability to play characters that are endearing, vulnerable, and ultimately very human.
Yeah, and she does it so well. It's like she wasn't afraid to be a little goofy, a little awkward, a little messy,
Yeah,
and that made her feel so genuine.
exactly. Like someone you could actually hang out with.
Totally. And that genuineness also carried over into how she talked about her past struggles.
Right.
Like back then, talking about mental health and addiction was still pretty taboo.
Especially in Hollywood.
Yeah, for sure. And her openness about her experiences helped to destigmatize those conversations.
Absolutely. It paved the way for other artists to be more open about their own experiences.
It was a huge cultural shift, and she was a big part of that, which is pretty amazing. It's like she wasn't just an actress playing a role. She was a real person going through real things, and she was brave enough to share that with the world.
It was inspiring.
Totally.
Yeah.
And you know what else is super inspiring about Drew's career?
What's that?
She didn't stop at acting. She went behind the camera and became a producer.
Yes. That was huge.
Right. Like forming Flower Films was such a power move.
It showed that she wasn't content with just being in front of the camera. She wanted to shape the stories being told.
Exactly. And she did. Flower Films produced some massive hits like 50 First Dates and Charlie's Angels.
Big hits, yeah.
This wasn't just about adding producer to her resume.
Yeah.
She was actively creating opportunities for herself and other women in an industry that hadn't always been so welcoming.
It was a sign of the times, for sure. Women were demanding more agency, more control over their careers, the types of stories being told.
Right. It was a real turning point.
It was.
And Drew was right there leading the charge.
She
It's
was.
pretty awesome when you think about it.
It is.
It's pretty amazing. And
Yeah.
she did it all on her own terms, too.
Mm.
You know, she didn't try to fit into some mold of what a female producer should be doing.
Yeah.
She just went out there and made it happen.
Yeah, she really blazed her own trail.
She did. And let's not forget about her directorial debut with Whip.
Oh, yeah, that was a great film.
It was. So much energy and such a powerful message about female empowerment.
It really showcased her versatility.
It did. You know, she wasn't just an actress or a producer. She was a storyteller in every sense of the word.
Absolutely. And a talented one at that.
Okay, so speaking of talent, can we talk about Drew's family for a second?
Sure.
I mean, this is someone who comes from Hollywood royalty.
The Barrymore name carries a lot of weight.
It does. Her grandfather was John Barrymore,
Hmm.
a legend on stage and screen. And her great-aunt was Ethel Barrymore, another icon of the American theater.
A true dynasty.
Right. So do you think that family history influenced her career path? Do you think it added pressure, or did it maybe inspire her?
That's a great question. It's hard to say for sure, but I imagine growing up surrounded by such talent must have had a profound impact.
Yeah, for sure.
It probably gave her a unique perspective on the industry, both its allure and its challenges.
Yeah, like she saw firsthand the good and the bad.
Exactly. And maybe it fueled her desire to create her own identity, separate from the Barrymore legacy.
Like she had something to prove?
Maybe. It's like she had to work even harder to show that she was more than just a name.
And she did. She carved her own path, embraced her individuality, and became a force to be reckoned with in Hollywood.
All while remaining incredibly grounded and relatable.
That's the thing, isn't it? She never lost sight of who she was, even amidst all the fame and fortune.
And that continues to resonate with audiences today.
Totally. I mean, her talk show is a perfect example of that.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like she's inviting us all into her living room for a chat,
Right.
sharing her life experiences, her passions, her vulnerabilities, and, of course, her infectious enthusiasm.
It's a testament to her enduring appeal.
She's not just an actress, a producer, or a talk show host.
She's a cultural icon.
Yeah.
Someone who has consistently challenged the status quo and redefined what it means to be a successful woman in Hollywood.
And she's done it with grace, humor, and an authenticity that's hard to come by.
For sure.
It's like she's constantly evolving, reinventing herself, and inspiring others to do the same.
And she's not afraid to take risks, to step outside of her comfort zone and embrace new challenges.
Oh, totally. Whether it's directing a roller derby film or launching a beauty line.
She's always pushing boundaries.
Speaking of pushing boundaries,
Huh?
did you know that in addition to all of her other accomplishments, Drew is also a published author?
Oh, yeah. She's written a few books, hasn't she?
She has a memoir, a collection of essays.
Hmm.
It's amazing how she manages to juggle so many different roles and still stay true to herself.
She's a multi-talented individual.
It makes you wonder, what's the secret to her success?
It's probably a combination of factors.
Like what?
Talent, determination, a strong work ethic. But I think her authenticity plays a major role.
Okay.
People are drawn to her because she's genuine, she's relatable, and she doesn't take herself too seriously.
And she's not afraid to show her flaws, to admit when she's made mistakes, and to learn from those experiences.
It's like she's saying, hey, I'm human just like you. I mess up sometimes, but I keep going.
And that's such a powerful message, especially in a world that's so obsessed with perfection.
It is. It's a reminder that it's okay to be imperfect, to embrace our vulnerabilities, and to strive for progress, not perfection.
Before we wrap up this deep dive,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to remind everyone one last time, if you're loving this trip down 90s memory lane, make sure to subscribe to that 90s pod and share it with your friends.
We appreciate your support.
We do. The more the merrier. Now, as we think about Drew's extraordinary career, I keep coming back to this question, like, how did she do it? How did she manage to navigate all the ups and downs of Hollywood and come out on top? It's like, how did she become this successful, multi-talented, genuinely kind person?
It's a question that goes way beyond just talent or luck. There's a resilience there, an ability to learn and grow from her experiences. It's pretty remarkable.
She could easily just given up.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The pressure, the scrutiny, the challenges she faced early on, it could have broken her.
But it didn't. It's like she used those experiences as fuel.
Right. It's like she channeled them into this determination to create her own path, both personally and professionally.
And that's what's so inspiring about her story. It's like a reminder that setbacks don't have to define us.
No, they don't. We can choose to learn from them to grow stronger and to use them as stepping stones to something even greater.
She's a walking testament to the idea that we can reinvent ourselves, that we have the power to shape our own narratives, no matter where we come from or what we've been through.
And she's done it all while staying true to herself. That authenticity shines through in everything she does, from her acting roles to her producing projects to her talk show.
Yeah, no wonder she's resonated with audiences for decades.
It's pretty amazing.
It is. It's like she's constantly reminding us that it's okay to be ourselves, quirks and all. You
In
know,
a world that's constantly telling us to conform.
exactly. And that's a pretty powerful message.
It is. As we wrap up this deep dive, I'm just left with this feeling of admiration, not just for Drew's accomplishments, but for her spirit.
Yeah.
She's a reminder that success isn't just about fame or fortune. It's about living a life that's true to yourself, using your platform to make a positive impact, and never losing sight of the things that really matter.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
So for all of you 90s enthusiasts out there, what's your biggest takeaway from Drew Barrymore's journey? What resonates with you the most? Let us know in the comments. And as always, if you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to subscribe to That 90s Pod and tell your friends.
We'll be back next week with another deep dive into all things 90s.
Until then, stay rad.